has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing Options, which purports to help at youth risk escape gang life.
You know that you definitely messed up when you have representatives from the federal government talking about an indictment against you, and they mention how your organization fraudulently was trying to help at youth risks in the community who are going towards gang violence. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean. Yes, that's my favorite part of the press conference, maybe of the whole entire story. And today we're going to talk about a man called Eugene Hanley, also known as Big U, who apparently was running a nonprofit that ended up receiving money from NBA players and all sorts of celebrities in order to help people get away from the gang life, when in reality, this man was the head of a criminal organization that not only conned NBA players and celebrities, but in addition to that, also conned the city of Los Angeles out of millions upon millions of dollars. Because of course, this is a diversion program. This is what you do when you defund the police. You give money to these community organizations, and it turned out that this was used to fuel a criminal enterprise. Allegedly, it was used to go into the pockets of Eugene Hanley himself, and in addition to that, the man's up on murder charges, human trafficking, everything and anything, and of course, it is funded by the taxpayer. Now, we're gonna get into this. We're going to break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Yeah, they talked a lot about a number of people in this press conference, but the main focus was on a man named Eugene Hanley. The feds say he committed a series of racketeering crimes, including extortion, human trafficking, fraud, and the murder of a rapper in 2021. But this same man, Eugene Hanley, is known throughout the Los Angeles community. He's been involved with work, including youth charities, and the feds say he did it all to further his own criminal enterprise.
So stop me if you guys have heard this one before, but a supposedly reformed criminal has started an organization in order to help the innocent Beba Angel black youth to avoid the mistakes that he supposedly has made in the past and is no longer making, only to find out that he's been using the cover of virtue as a mechanism to not only steal from mainstream celebrities, average everyday donors, but of course, the taxpayers of some ridiculously stupid city in the state of California.
Feds say use taxpayer money and donations to fund gang activities. In the past hour, we've learned that Eugene Hanley Jr. and Brian Mejia were taken into custody. Hanley Jr. is a longtime leader of the Rolling 60s Crips, according to the FBI. But in recent years, he worked in entertainment and ran a youth charity that the acting U.S. attorney now says was a front for his criminal enterprise.
Well, according to a Department of Justice indictment, that's exactly what Eugene Hanley is accused of doing. This is a man who pretends that he's a reformed gang member, pretends that he's an entrepreneur running a legitimate music label, and in addition to that, he just wants to give back to the kids. He just wants to show them exactly how they can better their lives and not go down the same path that he went down.
Which purports to help at youth risk escape gang life.
When in reality, he's actually the head of a gang called the 60s Crips, which is based in Los Angeles, and he's using the money from the taxpayer and from these celebrities and the legitimacy granted to him time and time again by the Los Angeles city government as a mechanism to cover up his criminality, which of course involves a bunch of different very serious organized crime related crimes like racketeering. We also have human trafficking, drug dealing, all your standard stuff. But in addition to that, in 2021, he's actually accused of murdering somebody, an up-and-coming rap artist, over a diss track because the guy is a petty animal who, of course, was never rehabilitated, should have never gotten a dime from the taxpayer, let alone all the different various celebrities that he is now accused of directly just pocketing that money. According to the affidavit filed with a criminal complaint on Monday when they unsealed it, from 2010 to the present, Henley's criminal group, identified in court documents as Big U Enterprise, operated as a mafia-like organization that utilized a Henley's stature and long-standing association with the Rolling 60s and other street gangs to intimidate Los Angeles businesses and individuals. Henley is widely regarded as a leader within the Rolling 60s Crips and rose to prominence in the street gang during the 1980s. While Big U Enterprise at times partnered with the Rolling 60s and other criminal elements for mutual benefit, Big U Enterprise enterprise is a distinct criminal enterprise engaged in criminal activity, including murder, extortion, robbery, trafficking, and exploiting sex workers, fraud, and illegal gambling. For example, in January of 2021, Henley murdered a victim identified in the affidavit as RW, an aspiring musician signed to Unique Music, Henley and Martin's music label. Now, Henley and Unique paid for RW to travel to Las Vegas to record music at a Grammy Award-winning music producer studio, but RW did not record at the agreed-upon rate and instead recorded a defamatory song about Henley, causing Henley and Robinson to travel to Las Vegas to confront him. Henley allegedly drove RW to North Las Vegas, shot him in the head, and dragged the victim's body off Interstate 15 into the desert and left him in a ditch. Henley returned to Los Angeles with Robinson and ordered studio workers to leave while his associate removed security footage from the studio. Henley allegedly ordered witnesses not to speak to law enforcement about RW's murder. So this guy, who's been lauded by the faux rehabilitation industry as some kind of hero, as some kind of success story, is not only pocketing taxpayer money through the nonprofits, aka a very standard type of criminality in cities like Los Angeles, in states like California, and nationwide, copying the Black Lives Matter model, but in addition to that, he's still committing petty murders over disrespect because he's an absolute thug, again, according to this particular indictment, if these allegations are proven to be true. Now, in addition to that, he also has scammed the taxpayer out of hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars, and many of those monies ended up directly in his pocket. Let us go through some of the allegations related to that. In furtherance of the criminal enterprise, Henley allegedly submitted a fraudulent application for a COVID-19 pandemic relief loan in which he claimed that Unique Music was operating at a $200,000 profit in 2019, despite operating at a $5,000 loss that year, which should have disqualified him from loan eligibility. The enterprise also enriched itself by defrauding donors to nonprofit entities under the control of Big U Enterprise, including Henley's charity, Developing Options, a Hyde Park-based nonprofit. Henley marketed Developing Options as giving South Los Angeles youth alternative choices to gang violence, drugs, and other criminal activities, but Big U Enterprise allegedly used it as a front for fraudulent purposes and to insulate members from suspicion and law enforcement. So we find out a couple of things related to this nonprofit, and by the way, I just want to point out that their filings up until 2023 are in fact public, and if anybody bothered to, look into how they were spending their money, what they would find out is that even if it wasn't fraudulent, even if they weren't committing crimes, virtually none of the money that is being paid to this nonprofit was going to any type of programs in order to help people. So in addition to the fact that Henley is allegedly pocketing big donations from people like Draymond Green and Shaquille O'Neal and all these different other various celebrities and athletes, the money, according to the books, that is supposed to be spent on these programs is going to a $90,000 salary for Henley, which is his public salary, which doesn't seem all that big compared to the nonsense we've seen in nonprofits time and time again. But every other dollar of the hundreds of thousands, some years to the millions of dollars, appears to be going to a bunch of people that sit on the board of the nonprofit that are funneling the money through kickbacks to Henley. So all of the money on the books appears to be going to staff. None of it's going to kids, and yet it keeps getting promoted.
Looking at the tax records for the Ex-Offender Fellowship, which includes the city money and private donations, you can see its revenue went from around $500,000 a year to nearly $800,000, then to nearly $2 million for 2023, the last tax return available. Where was the money going? The tax returns show while Eugene Henley Jr. was paid $95,000 as president and director, nearly all the money collected went to compensate unnamed top staff members, including corporate officers, directors, and trustees. According to the criminal complaint, Henley diverted much of that money to his personal bank accounts, and the feds say he allegedly pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in donations intended for the groups, including a $20,000 contribution from an NBA All-Star.
So even if the books were legitimate and there wasn't this kickback scheme that was ending up putting the money that was paid out to the executives back in Henley's pocket, all of the money, or virtually all of the money that's given to this organization, is being paid out to staffs on the board of this nonprofit. And yet, after the Black Lives Matter riots, guess what? They got a 4-year, multi-million-dollar contract from the city of Los Angeles because nobody's watching the store. Nobody cares about the taxpayer purse. The RICO charges against Mr. Henley and his associates reflect a pattern of crimes that run the gamut from extortion to tax evasion under the umbrella of a well-organized criminal organization led by Mr. Henley, said Special Agent in Charge Tyler Hatcher of the IRS Criminal Investigation, Los Angeles Field Office. Additionally, Henley allegedly duped the County of Los Angeles by running a charitable organization that promoted anti-gang solutions while continuing criminal activity that was directly contrary to the mission of his charity.
Henley's most recent contract with the city shows a payment of nearly $800,000 due in July 2024, the final installment of a 4-year agreement that paid his groups more than $2.2 million for intervention. Henley, seen here in a red carpet photo, began forming the nonprofits in 2009, according to state records. They began receiving city gang intervention funding as far back as 2011. Between 2018 and 2023, LA Controller payment records show Henley's groups received around $500,000 a year. Then, in 2023, a significant increase that followed then-Mayor Eric Garcetti's efforts to increase funding for intervention work after the rise in violent street crime that followed the COVID-19 pandemic.
So I want to give a quick correction related to what this local news segment just said right there, because the rise in crime was not due to the fact that we had the pandemic. As we discussed time and time again, crime was actually going down in the beginning of the pandemic up until late May of 2020 after the death of George Floyd and the start of the Black Lives Matter riots. That is when a bunch of different left-wing politicians in cities and states decided that it would be appropriate to pull back the police, cancel recruiting classes, take money from the police, and give them to these organizations. And it's very important for you guys to understand that even if this wasn't or isn't a criminal organization as alleged by the Department of Justice, that's still a horrible, terribly stupid idea due to the ineffective nature of these types of programs. But in addition to that, none of the money would have made it to the kids anyway because it was being paid out to executives. But in addition to that, it turns out that this was being run by the very types of street gangs that take advantage of youth that are troubled and use them in order to commit violence and more crime. So Eric Garcetti and the Los Angeles County and the city decided it would be a great, wonderful, and extra special idea to funnel money instead of to the police, cancel recruiting classes, lose officers, again, by a ridiculous clip, and then give it to the criminals. Give it directly to the gangbangers. And one of the craziest things about this, in my opinion, is that this, of course, continued into the Karen Bass administration because the woman is absolutely incompetent from top to bottom, and she decided that she was going to release this statement when confronted with her incompetence.
We asked the city of LA for its response about its oversight of these gang intervention programs. The mayor's office sent us some remarks a few minutes ago. It said the city has strict oversight in place, but they say the allegations made public today show that there was a sophisticated scheme to thwart that kind of oversight.
The audacity of Karen Bass, the current mayor of Los Angeles, the absolute doofus who bungled the Los Angeles fire response, to say that we have strict oversight over these nonprofits when we see over and over again that these nonprofits loot the taxpayer. Again, $24 billion on homeless services over the course of 5 years, completely incinerated and unaccounted for in the state of California. But Karen Bass is going to tell us that we have great oversight of this particular nonprofit, even though they have been running this scheme since 2009. Again, according to their public records that everybody was able to see, all of the money that was being put into the nonprofit was being paid out in salaries, all while these Democratic politicians were celebrating the good work that they were doing in the community, when in reality, there was no money left to do any good work in the community. In addition to that, there's nothing sophisticated about a celebrity giving money to this guy in order to pay for his nonprofit and him putting it in his pocket and never reporting it in the nonprofit. She pretends like this is some elaborate scheme, and yes, there were more elaborate parts of the criminal enterprise, but in reality, it wasn't. This was thuggish, brutish theft, which is what you can expect from a gang member.
It was just yesterday on the south steps of City Hall when Mayor Karen Bass touted the success of publicly funded anti-crime community groups. A message to Washington not to cut out federal grant money for the mayor's signature effort at fighting gang violence.
Through our Gang Reduction and Youth Development Program, also known as GRID, we are directly addressing gang violence through intervention, prevention, and community engagement services.
But according to the U.S. Department of Justice today, not all of that money was going to reduce gang violence. Federal authorities say self-described community activist Eugene Hanley, also known as Big U, received $2.3 million from the city over 5 years for gang intervention efforts. Money prosecutors say instead went into drug trafficking, fraud, even murder.
Now look, I don't know if the Trump administration is doing this for political reasons or somebody in the Trump administration has a great sense of humor, but the fact that they decided to drop this indictment on one of the very organizations that Karen Bass was praising the day after they were praising that organization, absolutely chef's kiss, beautiful right there. Karen Bass, you're an absolute incompetent in every way. And yes, the federal government should cut these grants because it's absurd that California and Los Angeles have this network of nonprofit parasites that don't do anything, that can have public books, the ones that were considered legitimate and thus worthy of being rewarded more and more money, that say that they don't spend any money on the community, it's all on salaries, and then they would still get paid. And then Karen Bass would do a press conference talking about the great work that these nonprofits do. But of course, one of my favorite parts about this story is Eugene himself, because he decided that he was going to deliver a defense. And by the way, I first heard this story from Anna Kasparian over at the Young Turks. So I'm going to play the clip from her particular video. It will be linked in full in the description of this video if you want to check it out. But guess who Mr. Eugene Henley blames for his arrest?
If you want me to predict what the reality of the situation is, I think he's probably guilty, considering how long this investigation had gone on for, considering the evidence that the federal authorities claim they have. But here's what Henley says. I ain't been nothing but a help to our community. This is the price of being Black and trying to help somebody, trying to help your community and do what you can. You just guilty because somebody else don't like you. Okay, yes, everybody is plotting against Henley because he wants to help his community. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. It turns out that the real culprit behind all of this is evil white racism. Didn't you guys know it was going to go there? Didn't you guys understand that this was going to be the culprit, the boogeyman behind the bush? Absolutely ridiculous from top to bottom. Again, this guy was a criminal, a gang member, known to be a gang member since the 1980s. He gets out of prison, he decides to go into this new hustle, and everybody in the city government and the state government embraces him. They start funneling him tax dollars. After the Black Lives Matter riots, when white guilt is at a maximum, they end up upping him from around $500,000 to sometimes $250,000 a year of tax dollars to nearly $1 million. And he's allowed to operate despite the obvious signs that this operation, again, from its legitimate documents, isn't doing anything. Gets constant praise from celebrities and politicians because this is a reformed Black dude that really knows how to connect with the community. He really knows how to talk with the community, which, by the way, turned out to be true because he has a long history of thuggishly extorting the community if these allegations are proven to be true. Again, absurd in every possible way. Obviously, he's going to play the race card. Karen Bass is going to play the race card. Everybody's going to play the race card because nobody wants to take any damn accountability. And by the way, Garcetti and all the previous mayors that ended up giving this guy money, they are also to blame. It's not all on Karen Bass. However, it's just hilarious that she was praising these types of organizations the day before the indictment ended up dropping because she's an absolute doof from top to bottom. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social medias. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Los Angeles taxpayers paying a gang member to run a criminal enterprise. Till next time.